Welcome to our weekend recap of SEC Baseball Week 1, otherwise known as Overreaction Monday, because
We're
isn't
in
that
rare
what we're
form
supposed
here
to do?
today. We're in rare
Overreact?
form. So
We are. We're having a
this should
lot
be
of fun off pod.
this should be fun.
This could be a classic. Well, classic is not a word that you use with college baseball in the first weekend. It's it's mid-February. People's fingers are frozen. You still got players, especially pitchers, rounding the shape. Although that said, pitching was great this weekend. I use the word classic facetiously, but we had one of those in Texas that I saw a good bit of. Some surprising results there. We had LSU this weekend, which will retain its number one ranking after going unbeaten. You had some storylines down there to speak of. You had Tennessee. Tennessee's got the worst record in the league as of Monday morning. And we got a storyline there. Blake, we got a lot to talk about. Where would you like to start here?
I think you should start with LSU because they're the number one team. That they're deserving of the starting point because I think it's. I mean, look, we did the video right going into the season. We're talking about, and everybody wants to know. Okay, every year you go in, who's the number one team? Great. Why? Why are they the number one team? And we kind of explained why that was and just the depth on the roster and all those things. And so I think LSU is the best starting point. So yeah, we're gonna reverse roles here. You're gonna if you're tired of hearing me talk all the time, which boy, I know there's a lot of you out there. Now you get to hear Chris kind of talk a little bit more. So and I don't know if you're gonna enjoy that, folks, but we're gonna at
You
least
probably won't.
we're gonna at least try this out. So no, I think LSU is where you should start.
Well, it was enjoyable, and I didn't see it, but just looking at the box score line, I would presume it was pretty enjoyable to watch Paul Skeens pitch. 6 innings, 12 strikeouts, 1 walk. I think he was in the upper 90s, which wouldn't surprise me at all. Pitching was a mess for LSU at times last year, and they get out of the weekend 35 strikeouts, 7 walks. Christian Little pitched a couple innings of relief for them. They're going to put him in the closer's spot. I think he was really good, although he wasn't the guy that got the save this weekend. That was Nate Ackenhusen. Offensively, it's kind of what you would have expected in a lot of ways. Gavin Dugas had a huge weekend, 12 total bases. LSU hit, 4 home runs, not as many as they'll usually hit. I guess the big story offensively is Tommy Tanks had a shoulder issue, got pulled early in that Friday game. They're saying he's going to be okay. But look, LSU's going to hit. And the Grant Taylor injury, too, that one, I guess most people saw that. He's going to miss the season. But they got pretty good pitching this weekend. They threw, 10 guys, and 9 of them threw pretty well. Look, if you're LSU, the bats are going to be there. It's do you have the Riley Cooper was good too. He's hit and miss for them at times too. I think if you're LSU, this is kind of what you want to see on opening weekend. Sans the White injury, which I think is going to be okay.
Well, and they've got they go to Texas this weekend, Round Rock, right? They go Kansas State, Iowa, Sam Houston State. So, and they're staying in Texas to play at Texas, who was 0-3, right? So we'll talk about that.
And looked awful this weekend. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so maybe that's the best place to transition to because that was, we said kind of coming into it, and I know we're going to go with this to start. But like what we talked about, just kind of those games at Globe Life and, the SEC teams, which of course Texas is also part of that. Soon to welcome you into Southeastern 16. But, I think that was certainly interesting to watch how those 3 games played out for Texas against Arkansas, Missouri, Vanderbilt. But Chris, I know, folks, I don't know if you saw this, but Chris is out there tweeting. He's tweeting this weekend.
I was a Missouri baseball tweeting machine this weekend.
You were fully on board the Missouri baseball bandwagon with the tweeting.
We got you on Dennis Gates. I'm gonna be Steve Beezer's best friend, apparently. I mean, because at this point, why not? But I mean, I feel nobody covers that program much. We're going to try, and I didn't know much about them. I mean, I knew some of the names. We had reached out to try to have something of Missouri baseball interest preseason. Didn't get much on the side. So I went into this weekend, and my goodness, we won't lead with Missouri baseball that often, but I think in this case it's justified. Like that, I got to see maybe half of Missouri's baseball this weekend, maybe not, but I swear to God, every time I saw Missouri at the plate, they were squaring balls up and down the order. The pitching was much better. I mean, the whole Sam Horn thing last night, I think, blew up Missouri internet because now it's like, well, he's supposed to be our quarterback or in contention for a quarter, and he looks great. He's pumping 97 the first inning against a TCU team that can really hit. Missouri takes 2 out of 3. I thought if Missouri could get one game this weekend in that field, because it's TCU, Oklahoma State, Texas. Those are 3 pretty good baseball teams, although I don't think I'd call Texas that right now. But point being, I did not expect Missouri to go 2-1. And baseball's a weird game, right? I mean, a bad team can take a series from a good team every now and then, but it wasn't what Missouri did. It was how it did it when I watched. And I didn't get to see, like, the odds are I probably didn't see your team play this weekend because there's 14 series going
It's
on
impossible.
at once.
It's literally not possible.
And we're trying to watch basketball too, in addition to. So I mean, I'm just going to go, but there's going to be something that your team did that was probably obvious that we're probably going to miss and all that. But I happened to be locked in on Missouri this weekend, and I thought that is a really interesting team because they got a lot of guys returning that hit, and I think they found a little bit of pitching this weekend too.
Well, really, I mean, I think when you look at it, right, outside of basically one bad inning against Oklahoma State, where they gave up 5 runs in the
Which
second.
can also hit.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's it. Like, if you look at every other game, like, I mean, give up 3 runs here and there to TCU, but again, win that game in extra innings and, as you said, beat Texas. Yeah, so, like, really outside of one just really bad inning where you give up 5 runs in the second to Oklahoma State, I mean, think about that, right? It's they won 2 of 3, but really it's one bad inning that loses you to third of that group, and now it's I mean, because we said going the season, it's like, look, if you're picking teams and they were picked last, so yeah, I mean, and we always, like, we were joking about the overreaction thing, right, to start off, but you got to take something away from this if you're Missouri, because I mean, again, it is one we're coming in. I mean, that was the conversation was, oh, Missouri's going to struggle here. They're going to be lucky to, even get close to maybe a win in this one. But now you come out of this with all this positive momentum. You got a schedule, I think, that certainly can play into their favor moving forward, perhaps. So I mean, yeah, I think you gotta, and then we're saying this off the piggybacking right off the basketball discussion of resumes and all this other stuff. And do these games matter when they're played?
It's a
and all
resume
that?
weekend.
Yeah, I mean, this was a big one. So I think, yeah, you can absolutely take something away from this without perhaps going too far in the opposite direction. But you've got to value 2 wins like that over TCU and Texas, no matter how you put it. So,
well, 2 things here. I look at a lot at runs scored and runs allowed because sometimes baseball, like you can get outscored 20-5 and win a 3-game series if you balance your luck right. Missouri outscored teams 19-18, but that 18 was surprising. Like if you said going into the weekend, all right, they're all going to play the same teams, Arkansas, Vandy, and Missouri, and it's going to be in a big league park, which is going to favor the pitching. I don't think anybody would have picked Missouri to come out having given up fewer runs than anybody else between those 3, because Vandy and Arkansas were supposed to have 2 of the better pitching staffs in the country, and both left a little bit to be desired in that area this weekend.
All right, so what stood out with Vandy and Arkansas?
Okay, let's start with Vandy. Didn't hit much against TCU. Did get 4 runs. I thought the bats the last 2 days for them were really good. Really, really good. I think that lineup's going to hit better than people think. It's got balance. The pitching, that thing they've done the last couple of years where they walk a lot of guys, hit a lot of guys, fall behind in counts. And I think Vanderbilt's going to straighten it out. And they got a big start from Devin Futrell with Bryce Cunningham coming on in relief. And I saw all that game against Texas. Looked pretty good. Now, look, Texas gave Vanderbilt opportunity after opportunity. So when you see that 12-2 final from Sunday, You can put an asterisk to that. Had 8 unearned runs in 1 inning thanks to 4 errors. But I thought Vandy hit the ball well. The pitching just was not what we expected. Carter Holton wasn't very good. Hunter Owen was hit and miss. Their bullpen was awful for the most part. Yeah, I want to – I'm interested to see how Vanderbilt does against UCLA next weekend. I figure they'll get it right. They usually do. But that was kind of not what you thought you'd see going in.
Yeah, but I mean, that will give them a good, like you said, I think the pitching was definitely right off the bat, which that's all I mean, that was the basis of what we talked about in our preview we did for them. And just talking about, look, here's what's going to carry them. We kind of expected. You look at the depth, and like you said, to start off, maybe not exactly what you thought you'd see, but the UCLA series will be a good kind of indicator, probably, right? Of where,
Yeah.
Again, it's more than just 3 games. Like at that point, you're talking about a 3-game series against the top, whatever, 15-ish type team. So I think that's probably a better indicator just of playing a single team in a normal series, maybe of kind of where they're at that point. So.
Yeah, Arkansas, I don't think it also looked the way we thought it would. Although Arkansas gets, what was it, an 18-1 win over Oklahoma State yesterday after giving up 18 in a loss the day before.
Yeah.
But by the way, here's another thing. Pace of play this weekend, man. They're doing a good job. And I know you had some batters caught off guard and stuff like that. But if you wanted the game sped up, you saw it even in some of these games that, where you're getting these pinball contests. But, Arkansas went in. I think Hagen Smith was pretty good this weekend. Hunter Holland gave them a good start yesterday, although it wasn't. It was kind of your new age baseball 4-inning start, but some of the newcomers really hit for them. Jared Wegner being probably the biggest one, and I think Arkansas comes out of it 2-1, just as Vandy did. And I think if you come out 2-1 playing those 3 teams, SEC's got a lot to feel good about with all 3 of those teams going 2-1 in that classic.
All right. We're going to hold the negative for last. Okay. That's what we do. We like to just hold off on the negative stuff until the end. Okay. That's our thing here. So the other positives, the other stuff that stood out to you the most from the weekend that were positive things, because again, there's not a ton of negative to really get to, but I know there is one fan base that's probably not exactly thrilled with where they are right now. But
no. I think the positive, and look, this last year, the pitching in this league was the worst I remember in a long time. This weekend, you had Kentucky give up, and these are all 3-game series. Kentucky gave up 3 runs. Alabama, South Carolina, Florida, LSU all gave up 5, I think, and Ole Miss gave up 6. I know the opposition in all those cases wasn't great, but you've seen a lot of strikeouts, and in a lot of cases, not a lot of free passes, which is something you want to see. Kentucky had a kind of a throwback to the 1920s weekend with winning a series with 9 runs scored and 3 allowed. Did lose a game in there. But, yeah, I thought you kind of had a big divide this weekend between pitching staffs because you had those. Then you had Vandy and Arkansas that struggled. Auburn struggled a little bit. Mississippi State struggled a lot in spots. But, yeah, I thought that the pitching on the whole was a good thing for the most part. Seeing some low run totals there again made me a little bit encouraged that maybe the league's going to pitch better, which you kind of knew coming in with some of the transfers like Skeens and Waldrop and guys like that, and some of the year-to-year developments. Tennessee staff being one in particular. It wasn't like we thought the pitching – we expected the pitching to be better, but I think you got a little validation, Blake, and I think you got it on some of the lower-end teams to me, which is encouraging.
All right. So Tennessee,
and I have one more positive.
All right, one more positive.
South Carolina scored 49 runs this weekend, hit a ton of home runs. That was an issue last year. Like, we knew Carolina's pitching would be good, and again, I don't draw a lot from these early weekend series where it's a slaughter from start to beginning, but you can also see that go where, South Carolina scores 15 runs or something. You're going, okay, well, if they're not hitting, against a bad staff, what are they going to hit? So Gavin Cassis, transfer from Vanderbilt, hits 3 home runs this weekend. Had a couple guys that put up crooked numbers in the home run column. And I thought that was another big thing, seeing Mark Kingston's team really hit. I think if you're a Carolina fan, I think the 2 teams that left more encouraged maybe than when they even win the weekend were probably Carolina and Missouri, I would have to think. So those were positives too.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought that's probably what stood out. 20-3, 17-1, 12-1 for South Carolina in those 3 games. And yeah, I think I was going to ask you, like, I think Missouri has to be probably the biggest surprise development just of the opening weekend based on the level of competition and what they did. All right. On the flip side, again, there's not a lot of negative to speak of, right? Like we, kind of mentioned a little bit of it. Maybe Vanderbilt's pitching was a little bit disappointing, some other things. But in terms of wins and losses, Tennessee starts 1-2. They lose to Arizona 3-1 on Friday, lose to Grand Canyon 4-3 on Saturday, beat UC San Diego 7-0 on Sunday. But what is it's overreaction Monday, right? Like, do we overreact to this? What do we do with Tennessee 3 games into the 50-something game season?
Well, first of all, I'm trying to remember when they lost their second game a year ago.
God, I was going to say, gosh, that's true.
First loss came against Texas at Minute Maid
Here, I'm going to pull
on
it up for you.
March the 4th. Second one didn't come until what?
Would have been against Tennessee Tech. Yep, April 12th. That was the that was the midweek game, right?
Yeah, that's the one they hit with wooden bats.
Yeah. Then lost the next one to Alabama after that.
Well, I'll give you, like, if you're looking for something encouraging, if you're like, not like you have to grasp at straws, but I'm bigger on teams that can pitch than teams that can hit. Tennessee's going to be able to do that again, it would appear. Dolan looked really good, gave up a home run on Friday that proved a little fatal because they weren't scoring runs. Burns was pretty good. And I didn't see Beam's line yesterday. But, I mean, their bullpen's good again. Their closer, Andrew Lindsay from Charlotte, who was out of baseball last year, I think blew a save. But, look, I would rather – I trust teams more that win games 3-2 and 3-1 than teams that have to win them 12-10. And so I guess if you're Tennessee, the offense is got some questions, and you got a huge – question at shortstop after the weekend. But I don't look. Arizona, Grand Canyon are good teams. They're not great teams, but I think they're good teams. I thought watching Arizona play, that looked like a pretty solid ball club. But there's no reason to panic. But when you pull off what you pulled off a year ago, it's a little bit of a contrast.
I mean, we said that though, and like you guys talked about in the preview, like it's keeping. And we talked about this a little bit, I think, in the LSU video we did to start the season. Why is LSU number 1? Because a lot of people had Tennessee at number 2. Well, for starters, because LSU is going to be really freaking good, and you just look at the lineup. But like you did understand, I think, from Tennessee's perspective, when you look at all the power and the hitting they lost from last season, like it's not going to be the exact same. And I think if you were expecting that, again, that was maybe just a little bit of an oversight, because I think you understood they were not going to be to that level, just of, again, what they pulled off was such a special thing, again, and just in the grand scheme of things. And we said, it's just more curiosity than anything to see that they're still going to hit. They've still got guys who can hit. But it's just, how far back does that go in terms of taking a little bit of a step back? Is it a huge step back? I don't think so, but it's just not going to be, I don't want to call it easy, right? But it's like, think about how that could get them out of, some jams last year, because you just had guys who could just knock the cover off the ball and completely change the game, in one hit. Not that they don't have that on this team, but it is different. I think that's maybe the bigger point, just 3 games in. So,
by the way, I made an error. I think when we preview this weekend, or maybe I did that already. I thought Tennessee was playing University of San Diego in game 3. It was UC San Diego. Different.
Chalk
team
up an error for
completely
Chris. We're keeping tally this year. 1 error on the scoreboard for Chris. So
I'm bringing my inner Texas out. I've never seen a team like Texas kick the ball around like it did in the second inning on Sunday. That was. Did you see that?
they're getting all the
I
they're
mean, that
getting
was
the
something
SEC.
else.
They're getting ready for the SEC. They're getting all this out of the way before they come to the SEC, and that'll be all right. So
Well, I mean that happens when you're
yeah,
breaking in a whole new team, which Texas basically is. But here's another. Alabama looked good. I didn't see that Alabama series, but Alabama put up some big numbers. I always kind of flag a team, and this is where we kind of hinted with Missouri. I think this was in a live stream. Somebody asked me, "What do you think of Missouri?" I said, "Well, looking at the line, they got a lot of older bats coming back, and that's usually a pretty good recipe. So maybe it shouldn't have been a total surprise." Alabama's kind of got the same thing going. The pitching is where people put their focus, but it seems like that whole lineup, other than Zane Denton, was back. And Alabama put up 39 runs this weekend, Blake. I mean, Alabama's. I mean, my goodness, there's a lot of teams you could probably circle as a sleeper, but they're probably on that list, on that short list of teams that I would consider at this point, because I like old works in college baseball, and Alabama's got a lot of guys who played a lot of ball on the pitching and the hitting side.
yeah. Obviously we ran out of time in terms of getting all of our team previews, but I think as I was putting together some stuff, that was one thing I had on my list here as I'm pulling up now was experience and maybe sleeper team esque in the SEC this season is looking at Alabama and what they had coming back, what they have coming in, and yeah, to start, like we said, it's one weekend, it's one series, but to put up the runs they put up, pitched well, yeah, that's always a welcome start for a team that, like you said, feels like it's certainly already got some built-in chemistry. And yeah, I mean, I think they're definitely a team to keep an eye on here because when you look ahead at their schedule too, I feel like they've really got some opportunity for a pretty good start here for this team this season. So
Ole Miss, we hadn't mentioned the defending national champs yet. Boat race Delaware, which is pretty much what you'd expect. Ethan Groff had a decent first weekend for them. Tulane transfer. I don't really know what to say about that one. I didn't get to see any of that one. Their younger arms, because they had some newcomers. Xavier Rivas, I think, was a transfer from Indianapolis. Struck out 8, pitched 4 innings, also walked 4. Grayson Saunier, their freshman, pitches 4, strikes out 5, walks 4, but keeps him off the scoreboard. Hunter Elliott was what you'd expect, 9 strikeouts over 5 innings. Got pretty good help out of their bullpen. I don't. And if you want to stay in that state, I do have maybe some comments on Mississippi State, but I don't think there's any big takeaways out of Ole Miss this weekend.
well, what about Mississippi State?
Well, man, I think that Saturday game brought back all the flashbacks from a year ago when the bullpen just collapsed.
Yeah.
I mean, they had issues throwing strikes last year, and it popped up again this weekend.
BMI had 14 runs on 7 hits. I mean, that's just right because it's man.
But I mean, it was a lot of the same guys that couldn't throw strikes a year ago, from what I could tell. And man, you wanted to leave the weekend feeling better about them, but and I think State will hit, and hitting wasn't really the issue a year ago. But that man, they're missing a stud or two that they had a couple of years ago, and their pitching depth just is not as effective as it was when they won the whole thing 2 years ago in Omaha.
Yeah, like you said, flashbacks. That's probably not what you wanted to see just to start a season. Just to have one of those games early, but yeah, but they did, and we'll see if that kind of what that leads to moving forward. All right, anything else? Anything else that stood out, positive or negative from the weekend?
Oh, you know what we didn't hit? The Maui Ahuna story. Tennessee had its shortstop out all weekend. There's a lot of uncertainty when he's going to be back. And that's a big piece because he was an All-American transfer shortstop from Kansas. That kind of blindsided Tennessee from what everybody was saying this weekend, publicly and privately. Of all the storylines coming out of the weekend, that was one of the bigger ones.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you think about kind of again all the positive momentum surrounding Tennessee, kind of just for the majority of last season, and like you said, probably don't get off to a great start. Now you got that added into the mix, and but again, it's a long season, and obviously that's a big part of it to see how that unfolds. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, it just I think about just they were the most talked about team last year, just in terms of everything and just the ridiculous run that they were on. And then now, like I said, it's sort of the starting off with a not I said not necessarily just losing to bad teams, but it's just it's one series as I said, but now you kind of have that to factor in too with a key player not on the field and those kind of things. So yeah, not probably the talking points you'd want to have for Tennessee necessarily coming out of opening weekend.
Yeah, I'm trying to look for things we might not have hit on. Jared Wegner at Arkansas had a really good week, and one of their newcomers. They hit the portal and got some kids. Like I said, just there was only so much baseball we could watch this weekend. Florida was pretty dominant. Florida's pitching looks back to Florida vintage pitching just based on the box scores. I presume that will continue based on history. Again, you're looking at really what 4 teams that played against opposition where you can really make some strong takeaways. Those 4 were Arkansas, Missouri, and Vanderbilt, which all went 2-1, and then Tennessee, which went 1-2. Now, everybody else, I don't know what kind of conclusions you're going to draw, although I do like to see guys throwing strikes and avoiding the walks, which that does even happen against bad teams. So,
anything on the midweek schedule that stands out before we wrap up?
Tell me the midweek schedule. I'll take
All
a
right.
look. I'll pull it up as we're doing
Let
this.
me give you Tuesday. I'm going to run through these quickly. Tennessee Tech at Alabama, Grambling at Arkansas, Winthrop at South Carolina, Alabama A&M at Tennessee, Arkansas State at Ole Miss, North Alabama against Auburn, Lamar at A&M, Evansville at Kentucky, ULM at Mississippi State, Florida at South Florida, LSU at Southern, Central Arkansas at Vanderbilt. Those are all on Tuesday. Wednesday games, Tennessee Martin, UT Martin at Alabama, Queens at South Carolina, Alabama A&M at Tennessee, UAB at Vanderbilt, South Florida at Florida, ULM at Mississippi State again there. And Thursday, Missouri goes to FIU to start that 4-game series there.
No, I mean, this is kind of recovery weekend. This
Yeah.
is the only weekend that some teams will play 5 games. You got teams that have got big series coming up. You mentioned, let's see, you mentioned LSU next weekend. I know we've got, let's see, Florida's hosting Cincinnati. I don't know that that'll be much of a series. The biggest one, probably Vanderbilt hosting UCLA.
Yeah, I figure we'll get to those later in the week.
No. There's a method to the madness. That you've got, and Ole Miss is also going up against Maryland, which is pretty. Point is, you got a few teams that have got challenges next weekend, and plus you just got a lot of games right together.
Yeah.
So no surprise that the midweek schedule's kind of light. I mean, Winthrop in South Carolina, I don't know what Winthrop's got this year. Tennessee Tech and Alabama kind of caught my eye. Tech can really hit a lot of years. I don't know what it is this year, but Florida, South Florida's always a lot of talent down there. That's an in-state thing. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know to see much that piques my interest, but we'll be looking for it.
Hit that subscribe button. That way you can get it all whenever we are looking for it. Isn't that right? So,
and we're going to be looking for a lot. We're going to be doing a ton of baseball coverage this year. Again, our attention was divided. It's always tougher to do these when it's not SEC on SEC, because then you got 14 series to watch instead of 7. Plus, we got basketball. But we're We're going to go wall to wall with baseball and approach that just like we do basketball and football. And if you watch our videos there, you know how much we cover this in depth. So that's what you can expect at our channel. Best way to get that, hit the subscribe button. That doesn't cost you anything. It's just like the follow. And, of course, hit the like button. That helps us get noticed. Blake, I'm done. Anything else before we say goodbye?
I think we've been talking for about 4 hours today on recording all these videos. And, yeah, more to come, I think. Still got more videos to do somehow, I think. So, yeah, hit subscribe.
Thanks for watching us here at Southeastern 14. He's Blake Lovell. I'm Chris Lee. We'll see you again soon.